Kia ora and welcome to Workers' Voice. Spend the next hour with us as we discuss the tribulations and triumphs of building workers' rights and increasing fairness in the workplace. This show is produced by Unite Union.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Workers' Voice, and I'm your host this week. I'm Joe Carolan from Unite Union, and joining me in studio today are three fine activists from Auckland. On the left here is Sid Aksoy, and Sid, you're a lecturer here at Unitec, eh?
Yes, I am. I'm a lecturer of furniture making at Unitec, and I'm also the Tertiary Education Union's branch president.
Excellent. A TEU, also in struggle at the minute, both here and AUT, all over New Zealand. Yeah. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, cheers.
Directly facing me, Stephen Hassan.
Hi, how you doing? Currently I'm a student. I'm doing a Bachelor of Addiction Studies. I've been working with clients all year out at Community Alcohol and Drug Services in Manukau. Before that I worked in needle exchange, so advocacy is a big part of what I do, and harm reduction and those sorts of things. Yeah.
And Stephen, you're a regular fixture of the kind of activist scene now in Auckland, I suppose?
New to it, but feel reasonably firmly entrenched. I've only really been politically active for the last 18 months or so, but
right.
It's a pretty important part of what, my life.
Well, that's interesting. We're going to talk to you about as a kind of like a new activist, kind of the links that you might see between some of the causes we're at. Fighting. And lastly, but not least, on my right is Chloe Ann King. Chloe, you're a blogger, a writer. I believe you're contributing to a new chapter on precarious workers, a book going to be launched next year.
Yeah, it's a book that is a whole bunch of young writers, emerging young writers, or just young writers that have been posting on the internet for a long time. And my chapter is entitled On the Rise of Precarious Work and the Human Toll on Young People. I'm an activist as well. I have been since I was about 16. And basically, I've also been locked into low-paid, precarious work. So I come from a working-class perspective, which is quite unique when it comes to political writing. I think it's really important, and we need a lot more of those working-class voices penning their own stories and not just being reported on.
And you're a regular writer for the Daily Blog and other outlets on the net?
Yeah. So the Daily Blog, I've got my own blog. I'm just working with the editor of Overland in Australia right now to get a piece up on there. So just expanding my platforms and, yeah.
Cool. And so our radio show also is it goes on the net, so it's a contribution to the new media for the new activism. All right, let's get into it. First, Sid, I want you to tell us, here we are on this beautiful campus, Unitec, with all these fantastic courses, facilities like this, yet it's under attack. Could you tell us what's happening?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start with a few facts of what Unitec is and what it represents and what size of a polytechnic it is in New Zealand. First of all, Unitec is the largest polytechnical institute in New Zealand. We have about 11,000 students, up to 15,000 students, full-time students, and we have about 1,000 staff that is catering for the needs of such students. Now, recently, several attacks on public education as we know it have occurred here at Unitec. The biggest one is probably a declaration by our CEO Rick Eade, which says that by 2017, 300 staff members will lose their jobs. So that's roughly a third of the workforce at Unitec. So that is huge. At any given day, at any restructure, a third of the workforce is a big loss of very well educated people, very well committed people to students. From here we take it then and have to also recognize that Unitec is on a path of privatization by many cuts, so to say. They have now declared that they will privatize the student services part of Unitec, which will be given away. It will not even be sold. It will be, as in their language, it will be outsourced to a call center called Concentrix. Now, we all know what call centers do. They can sell the business on. Now, if it was a proper privatization, I would like to ask actually, okay, for how much have we sold this? Or what are we really getting from it? Mm-hmm. But I don't think there is a monetary aspect to it. We are just giving the business away, and we are expecting better service. Now, better service you can expect from somebody you pay really well. In a call center, people usually work for minimum wage on 0 contract hours. Mm-hmm. So that is absolutely a bit of a faux pas, I would say. And from here on, what will happen is that if you guys out there, prospect students for Unitec, if you call up Unitec from April on, you will not be answered by a person who is really well knowledgeable in their field about certain aspects of academic learning. But what you will get is a call center person, and she will answer your, at best at their knowledge, will answer your questions. So that'll be quite doubtful what the quality there will be.
So you're talking about 300 jobs going. I mean, are most of those jobs lecturers, are they? Or, people who are in front of the class delivering, teaching, learning, facilitating?
The first wave is really the student services, where 55 non-academic staff, admin staff will lose their jobs. So that's the first wave, 55. But the rest then, by the looks of it, will be on all levels of academia, will be academic staff. So our HOD's positions have been established, which is actually a very, very dangerous point, because an HOD, you have to understand, is an academic position to uphold the quality of learning in a specific field. These will be now replaced with business managers. So a business manager doesn't need to be in the field qualified, needs to be just a person who, can count a few beans.
So we're seeing this attack on education, at all levels in university in New Zealand, not just at university level. My kids go to the local school here, and they're bringing in e-learning without talking to the parents. No consultation, no democracy, no community involvement. Here's the syllabus. Everybody's got to put kids in front of screens instead of teachers. And actually, what is the benefit? What are the studies that we've shown that you learn something better from a screen rather than from a human being?
Well, I'm a trained secondary teacher, and there is a rule that it's happening. It's happening everywhere, particularly in secondary schools as well. Like, a lot of contracts are going from full-time to part-time. So what's happening is that what this also does is it kind of pits workers against each other. Like you were talking about those massive cuts. Well, that just creates this feeling of insecurity between staff members as well, because it's obviously happening at AUT. Because I talk to lecturers all the time there, and they feel stressed and depressed because constantly they're facing these massive restructures. And what it does is, it's pitting workers against each other, and that is absolutely by design.
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, tertiary education is supposed to be the, universities particularly, are supposed to be the conscience of society. And when you have a government that's utterly without conscience, they don't want voices of dissent, Yeah. And from a student's perspective, I'm kind of late to tertiary education in my life, but a couple of the papers I've done this year that I've had a lot of difficulty just feeling engaged in, they call it blended learning, So you just get screeds of stuff to read every week, but no class time to really discuss the ideas, and that's where you learn from each other. And this move to blended learning, you're still paying the same amount to sit the papers, but if you have education providers running education like a business, then that's what you get, maximising profits, and the staff suffer, the students suffer too.
Yeah.
Now there's a bit of struggle though on the way. I mean, there was a strike at AUT that you were at, Chloe. And Sid, you've had some actions here as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, we had a couple of actions so far as a reaction to the restructure at Unitec. First of all, I have to say we have put to their restructure, we were obviously in a consultation process. How serious it was from management's point of view, I'm not sure. But we have put 103 proposals to them, submissions to their change proposal, and all 103 submissions were basically not regarded in any way. So that needs to be mentioned. After that, then we started to take some action, because up to that point we believed that in academia we can talk to each other and reason will prevail. Obviously, reason behind all this is business, and you can't argue against business. So we went out on the street and we tried to get some support from the public together around the 300 job losses we would have. And just recently, also a fortnight after that, so that was on, by the way, our Black Friday, the 13th, last month in November. And a fortnight after that, on the 27th, we did a quick flash mob action in the hub of Unitec. That's basically the center of Unitec, and we did a bit of a trashing of the restructure proposal by the CEO, Rick Eade. We put all their proposals into one rubbish bin, and no, we didn't burn it, because that would have been a higher hazard, but hey, it's always an option still to come. So that was our concrete actions so far. But I would really like to say, Joe, what you mentioned earlier, that is so important, that we are now under attack by an ideology that pushes to us that learning must be online, as if that is undisputedly now the new pedagogies. There is that. So, and that is wrong. We are at a polytechnic. We are not all masters or PhD students at a polytechnic. We are catering for students that come from secondary schools and just come into tertiary. So what these kids, what these students need is not necessarily online and individualized and isolated from each other. They need a community. So that discussion, as you mentioned earlier, that discussion that needs to happen to digest certain aspects of what we have actually gathered in information, that needs to happen in a community form at Unitec, face-to-face. In the new format, not only will we lose staff, but also class sizes will increase by 30 to 35%. So class size increase on the one hand side, on the other hand side, less staff. I mean, that's, for me, that is really, that is a disaster zone.
Yeah.
When you're talking there about the philosophy of education and where it's going, I think I read in Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, you know, there's different ways that we learn. So you either have that, like Aristotle, you know, I am the teacher. Shut up, listen to me, I'm going to fill your head full of the stuff that I've got, like a petrol tank, you know, you're empty and I'm going to fill you. Or then there's the more socialist way of looking at education, which is that all of us have things that we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
So that kind of
everybody's
Socrates,
a teacher and everybody's
and that's a really
student.
powerful way of teaching as well. And that socialist kind of pedagogical thinking is about taking down, you know, the walls between different subjects, because, you know, everything does intersect, and to have those conversations. You know, we kind of are really isolated in silos, and you speak to lecturers at universities in the different, you know, departments, and they always say that they don't talk to other teachers in other departments, and I feel like that's really problematic. There needs to be a lot more collaboration between teachers, and, you know, tearing down of walls, not continuing to build them up, which is actually what's happening in education.
Obviously, there are time restrictions to all of these. So what is also has been happening for quite some time is that we are all under time pressure to put certain curricula through to students. So, and a polytechnic, as Unitec is not necessarily just all theoretical learning, but actually it's quite practical. Quite a bit of our learning happens in workshops. So we cater here for a wide range of trades, for example. Unitec is probably one of the largest trade educators in the country. So that will suffer under this new regime. Our trades educators will probably be one of the largest groups that will be sacked and reduced to nothing.
Okay, well, this might be a good time to take our first song. This is by Adam Freeland. And in a world where everything can be commercialized, commodified and sold, Listen to this. We want your soul.
Your cell phone, your wallet, your time, your ideas. No barcode, no party, no ID, no beers. Your bank card, your license, your thoughts, your fears. No SIM card, no disco, no photo, not here. Your blood, your sweat, your passions, your regrets, your profits, your time off, your fashions, your sex, your pills, your grass, your tits, your ass, your laughs, your balls. We want it all. Your soul, your house, your phone, your life, your cash, your house, your phone. We want your soul, your house, your phone, your life, your cash, your house, your phone. We want your soul. Tell us your habits, your fads, your fears. Give us your address, your shoe size, your years, your digits, your plans, your number, your eyes, your schedule, your desktop, your details, your life. Show us your children, your photos, your homes. Here, take credit, take insurance, take a loan, get a job, get a pension, get a haircut, get a suit, play the lottery, play football, play the field, or some dude. We'll show you trick, we'll show you spook, we'll buy you drink, throw away your book, we'll sell you crap, we'll charge you debt, wanna buy big guns, we'll tons of cash. Your phone, we want your soul. Your house, your phone, we want your soul. Your house, your phone, we want your soul. Your house, your phone, we want your soul. No dropouts, no gays, no lefties, no loonies, no opinions, no way. No thinkers, no teachers, no facts, no freaks, no skaters, no tweakers, no truth, no sleep. Here's boy bands, here's knackers, here's Ridley, here's cola, here's pizza, here's TV, here's some rock, and some roller. Watch commercials, more commercials, watch Jerry, not Oprah. Buy a better life from the comfort of your sofa. Here's popcorn, here's magazines, here's milkshake, here's blue jeans, here's padded bars, here's armpit wear, here's football shirts, here's baseball caps, here's live talk shows, here's video games, here's cola life, here's tin morning, here's filter tips, here's collagen apps, here's all night malls, here's plastic hips. Your house, your taste, your want, your soul, 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 your house, we want your soul.
We Want Your Soul and Adam Freeland there. Chloe, they want your soul, don't they?
Are we talking about shitty employers?
Yeah.
Because that is very true.
As well as being one of the best bloggers, I think, in New Zealand.
Stop it. Keep going.
You're a very strong anti-capitalist feminist voice there. We need lots more of them.
Hey.
But as well as that, you also hold a number of day jobs, night jobs, in between jobs. And I've been talking to you quite a bit about what we need to do about 0 hours and casualised work, particularly in hospo and entertainment in the city centre of Auckland. Now, I come from a place, Dublin, and all the pubs in Dublin are controlled by what used to be called Innovgatu, the Irish National Union of Vintners, Grocers and Allied Trades. And it was one of the strongest unions. Like, when you go to a pub, everybody who's working there has got a ticket from Mandate Union now, that's what it's called. And you don't get into the pub. You don't work there unless you got a union ticket, right? And they used to pick their times for striking during the World Cup, picket lines up, and anyone who crossed to get in and have a pint would be later on barred from the pub by if they were pro-union employers, right? So it's a completely different experience here in New Zealand, isn't it? I mean, like, it's totally deregulated. You actually asked me one time, you phoned me up in the union, you said, Joe, what's the shortest unit of time you can be rostered on a shift for? Is it an hour? Is it 3 hours? And I think you were working like for half an hour or something one day.
Yeah, I think that, unfortunately, we do have a really unregulated hospitality sector, particularly with independent businesses. And it's all over Auckland, it's all over New Zealand, it's not just the city centre. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you're subject to how busy the workplace is, and as an employer, you know that the only usefulness you have is your capital to your employer. So as soon as you are no longer making the money, as in there aren't enough customers there, you get rostered off. And it's the unfortunate thing is that, there's this massive growth in precarious work in this country. There's a growth in the part-time economy where if you want to somehow get full-time hours, you've got to work multiple jobs to do that. This is on purpose. This is so employers can routinely deny you your benefits, sick pay, holiday pay. They go out of their way to deny you those benefits. So you never have work security. You never have a consistent paycheck. I can attest to the fact that it's economically devastating. It's stressful. Most people I know in the type of work that I'm in suffer from depression and addiction issues because you start to get so unhappy in your workplace. So I think we need to go out of our way to start unionising people in this type of work. I think it is. Independent businesses have been overlooked for far too long, especially in the hospitality sector.
Now, you worked in the same kind of sector in hospital and that over in Australia. What were the differences that you saw over there?
I guess Australia is much more high volume, so you do have longer hours, and obviously there are penalty rates. It's really important to point out that not all businesses will actually pay penalty rates, but a lot of them do, which means on a Sunday, for example, you can be paid up to $35 an hour because you're working a Sunday. So minimum...
Praise the Lord.
And you know what? Okay, and here's something interesting. Obviously, you go to Australia as a New Zealander, you've got to give up some of your rights. You don't get security there, you don't get welfare, stuff like that. Okay, but you get paid twice as much for the same job. And here you're living in poverty, so you're denied rights anyway, because you're poor. And when you're poor, you're subject to being denied your entitlements at WINS, for example. So really, honestly, don't see much of a difference other than I had a much easier lifestyle there. So,
and the poorer you are, the less you like to speak up.
Yeah, the more disempowered you feel. I think that's absolutely on purpose. I mean, if you're constantly just trying to make enough money to buy enough food, and also if you're like me and you have a massive student loan, you're subject to having sometimes like 20% of your paycheck taken out because you missed payments. Like, the IRD routinely punishes you. So not only, if you're a student and you have a student loan, you're actually earning less than minimum wage because it's been taken out of your loan, like out of your paycheck.
For Australian students who are working, it's based on a scale of what they're earning, isn't it? To you know, how much they're expected to pay back at any one time.
Yeah, I think you don't have to start paying it back until you're earning about 50k.
Yeah.
Like, and here I'm constantly hounded by the IRD. I have to ring up and beg for extensions. It's humiliating. I have to talk about my finances, and they're pretty awful for someone that's 30. So it's not something I enjoy talking about.
Now, we got talking when Unite Union was at the front of its 0 hours campaign earlier on in the year, and we had some successes in beating back the fast food multinationals, where, you know, over the years we'd risen the minimum wage, got some, you know, good agreements there about your anniversary or 6 months getting pay rises in there. But the big thing all workers kept telling us was all of that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the union gets us a pay rise. If we lose even 1 hour a week, that's the pay rise gone, right? So we really want to secure ours. And that's where we kind of hit on the kind of 0 hours campaign. You know, the importance of words in naming a problem. We've fought that for 10 years beforehand. We called it secure hours and blah, blah, blah. No one really got what we were talking about until we kind of... I think there's a phrase of ex-nomination, right? The French linguists talk about nobody knows what they're suffering from until someone names it. You know, we're suffering from capitalism. We're suffering from imperialism. And this thing, we're suffering from 0 hours. What do you mean 0 hours? 0 hours are guaranteed to a worker. I can't pay my rent. I don't know if I'm going to have enough money to pay my rent next week. And that's where 70 or 80% of people in New Zealand actually ended up supporting that campaign, even from the right wing, you know, people like
people
Paul
were
Henry.
just shocked to learn about it. They, you know, I remember discussing it with my parents, and yeah, they just really had no idea that people were being treated this way, you know.
And I think people were shocked, but 30% of our workforce in this country are subject to insecure hours, no guarantee of hours. A lot of people don't have a guaranteed start time. What this means is inconsistent paychecks. It's funny because a lot of people who poverty shame will say that you're not budgeting properly or whatnot, but how can you budget when you never know what your income is the next week? And even worse, I was better off on welfare because at least I knew every week how much I was going to get. And I could 1 week... when my current job at the RSA, who calls themselves a community organisation but do not treat their staff well, I could earn $150 1 week and then maybe $400 the next week. And actually, I came into work last week, looked at my roster, and they'd halved some of the most dedicated staff's shifts. So yeah, they'd halved our shifts, and like I just nearly started crying because this is just before Christmas time, and that's quite devastating to know that you were that worthless to your employer.
When you talked there about poverty shaming and you know what one generation might say to another, you know, why don't you go get a job? Why don't you go get educated and study, you know? And yet there is such a disconnect from the time when they were looking for jobs, you know what I mean? Well, you could have a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday and you got penal rates at the weekend and you could have an affordable house. You probably had free education. Look at this generation where we've got 0 hours, where we've got privatised third level education with huge debts. I mean... you know, it's getting harder and harder for people now.
I think I just had actually a very interesting experience now. I'm probably the oldest guy here around this table. My son, 22, he applied for a job and came back with a contract home. He read through it. No mention of hours. No mention. Now, my son, 22, that's his first job. Now, he doesn't know any better, so he would have signed that. I had to basically educate him into it, saying, look, have a look at this. What this means is your employer can actually any time withdraw the hours that he has not even mentioned here. He can, if he doesn't like, you can basically take the hours away from you just by sympathy. You're becoming a ball in his hand, so you can't really resist against that.
Yeah, there's still a perception with a lot of people that, particularly fast food work, their jobs that high school students work, but these are people with families that, and honestly, I think a lot of these workers are looked down on because they're not as well educated as a lot of other people. But people need this work, They rely on it to feed their families.
I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I've organised fast food workers for about 10 years, and actually now they're probably the most highly unionised section of the working class, in hospo. And we had our Unite conference a couple of weeks ago, and I've recently unionised some of these really flash places in Federal Street, with all these award-winning chefs and, $20, knickknacks and stuff, and where all the bourgeoisie would go and, swan around in a so-do-so-po style South Park kind of way. And yet the workers there got talking to the Burger King workers from Dominion Road and found out that these people were getting not only 2 15-minute breaks, but a third 15 minutes after 8 hours. And it was a real lesson for them. You're working for this big shot Metro magazine, award-winning chef-style restaurant, and yet workers who've got a union have got more rights than it. It was a real wake-up call for those workers to unionise.
Yeah, I've worked on Ponsonby. I've done hospitality, unfortunately, for over 10 years now, and some of the worst employers are independent owners who will push fair trade coffee and are all, say that they're about human rights, but absolutely treat their staff like nothing more than a resource to be exploited. And we are often not unionised because they are independent businesses. We feel quite isolated, but I think we do need to start realising we can all unite together, and we need to start having those conversations. And I've worked 15-hour shifts and gotten, maybe the pay's okay, but I've gotten maybe like a half an hour break the whole entire time. Another thing is, how crap your employer is if they won't even let you go to the toilet. That's really common. First of all, even having to ask the permission to go to the toilet isn't interesting. It's degrading, but it's a given. If you're 10 deep, it's midnight, high volume bar, you ask your manager if you can use the toilet, they will often say no. And I was saying to you before, Joe, I know girls that have gotten bladder infections because they've been forced to hold it for so long, and that is routine. Also, another interesting thing, how funny is it that we have such a focus on how bad employees are who steal off their employer? That's such a no-no. Mm-hmm. But overwhelmingly, what I see is employers stealing off their employees, whether they are docking our hours or docking breaks we never had and saying that we did. That's theft, and we don't talk about that enough. And they routinely deny us sick pay when we're entitled. We've been there for 6 months, but they always find a way around it, and that is theft.
Yeah, quite aside from really dodgy contracts, particularly in hospitality, is issues around, and it's another reason that unions are really important, issues around bullying and sexual harassment are huge in hospo.
I think we've got to have a look at this. We've got to have a social movement response, really. No union's going to look at just unionising a whole load of little small places. Mm-hmm. This is where we've got to take on a street, take on an area, build a social movement around that area.
Yeah, I think street by street is almost like a really powerful catchphrase. Like, street by street, we can unionise these workers. And it is about making them feel empowered. It is about, because we get no security from our employer, none whatsoever. So if unions can give us that security, that would be amazing.
All right, well, we'll look forward to kicking off something this summer down Ponsonby Road and in the city centre. Chloe at the lead and Unite behind with all the other comrades. And who's going to do this? Well, Boots Riley from the Coup says that we are the ones.
This is I guess you call it
Check it out. We are the ones. We'll steal your fame, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace, smash up your place. That's just polite. Check it out. We are the ones. We'll steal your fame, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace. Smash up your place. That's just polite. That's just polite. Once upon a time when crack was gold and hip-hop was not yet platinum sold, I scoured the streets for stacks to fold. My mood like my hair was relaxed and blowed. I hated police and my teachers were beasts. My heat in the trunk of the classic Caprice. The one university I knew was Yale, so I cooked it, bagged it, put it on sale. Now philosophically you'd be opposed to an inhaling coke via mouth or the nose, but economically I would propose that you go eat a dick as employment it froze. And I felt like an abandoned child, left to fend for myself in the wild, while every courtroom judge and gavel, whether to bury me under the gravel or at the bottom of the finest malt ale. Observe, you find without fail that in every neighborhood and penitentiary there exist many others who are similar to me, and we are the ones. We'll see your fate, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace. Smash up your place. That's just polite. That's just polite. Check it out. In later years, I lost some peers who mixed burners with Belvedere and took shots from gung-ho cashiers. The world was cold, yet hell was near, so I saved for a kilo. And my stack got a little bit taller like Skilo. A street CEO. There was all of this heroin and not one hero. The intensity was 45 as I crunched 5 digits on the 45. Belly down at the retail store, I would detail more, but I don't wish his essence to be glorified. If there was a plan, I would take her to listen, to not sleep in the park in the fetal position, having to wipe off canine fecal emission. Otherwise, I survive without legal permission. It's an equal division, and then we go to prison, which is a legal decision. All I wanted was the Rico to glisten, and my kids to have meat in the kitchen on complete ammunition. It's a given once the people are driven that way. We are the ones. We'll see your fate, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace. Smash up your place. That's just polite. That's just polite. Check it out now. Get your work up. 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 We are born from the mildew, the rust, the heat and the slush, the dreams in the dust, the evidence flush, the grieving is just, the thieving from us, insulted and cussed. This evening we bust, our peers unstable and under the table. We like free speech, but we love free cable. We talk from the cradle, the Bill Gates fable, which leads to high speeds and Buick-less Sables. We have no excuses, just great alibis, and poker faces you can't analyze. Our politicians sell our soul and our cries with blood on the hands they can't sanitize with the have-nots. But we're also the gon-gets, not just talking about the Lex with the chrome kits. You could get that by yourself with the faux fizz, all on shit, then toast with patrol. We are the ones. We'll see your fate, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace. Smash up your place. That's just polite. That's just polite. Check it out. We are the ones. We'll see your fate, tear down your state, go get your guns. We came to fight. It's your disgrace. Smash up your place. That's just polite. That's just polite. Check it out now. Get your work up. 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 Get your work up.
We are the ones, the only ones that will make change. All right, well, joining me is my good friend Stephen Hassan. Now, Stephen, we met each other about a year ago on the bus up to Waitangi.
Waitangi, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that was a great bus, wasn't it? It was a great mixture of greens, reds, and browns.
Yes, one of the best things about that was the bus broke down. So we had a lot of extra time to share, and going through a bit of adversity together really builds those bonds. So yeah, I hold all of those people dear, and to be honest, I didn't really know a lot of them before that trip. So yeah,
so my evil plan worked.
Yes, yeah.
So, and in the last few months, there's been a bit of an upsurge in activism in town. I mean, nearly every weekend we've been on marches and stuff together.
I mean,
what's been happening?
The struggle doesn't break for winter, but it does pick up over summer, doesn't it? So lately we've had the Hikoi for Homes that, CPAG, AAAP, Unite, First Union, and probably a few others who I've forgotten, I'm sorry, were involved out in Glen Innes. And that was a success, for a wet Sunday, and also for an action that's out of the city centre. Mm-hmm. We had a good few hundred people along, and right in the middle of, an area that's gone through social cleansing, you know. And a lot of these places that have been bowled and vacated, they're sitting empty while people are sleeping in cars.
Very important that unions started joining the housing struggle. I mean, there's been a number of admirable efforts, you know, over the years. We've been involved in the kind of resistance in Glen Innes, you know, with the Tamaki group there, the Tamaki Housing Group, with the local Mana branch. But, you know, ghettoised, if you like, you know, into the state housing sector. This march raised other issues as well as state housing. What were those, Stephen?
Well, yeah, homelessness is, you know, is huge. And you know, a few of us broke off and marched up Paratai Drive, which was quite interesting to stand outside a $40 million home. You couldn't tell if anyone was there. They were probably out in their boat. But it's, you know, it really is a disgrace, and it's quite obvious that people have been eyeing up that area for a long time, you know, just waiting till the right administration's in to push everyone further out. A friend, Renee Gordon's been doing her master's thesis on housing, and see, I'm kind of late to this movement, and some of the people I know have been doing, you know, been fighting this fight for years. She said with privacy concerns and stuff, it's very difficult to track people once they've been moved along. You know, they're all just atomised and cast to the winds. And so in terms of studying the effect that it's having on individuals as well as, you know, the devastating effect it's had on that community is kind of difficult to track because people just, they're gone, you know.
Now, one of the problems for working class people is that state housing is no longer an option for most of us. You know, the National Party has kind of created this vibrant state housing that it's only for the unemployed, people with disabilities, and you know what I mean. It's like even packaging it as a negative thing.
Oh, again, you know, they're really good at picking out odd examples of you know, people and casting them as being feckless and too picky. You know, we offered them 3 places, they didn't like this one because the door was the wrong colour. You know, finding just really odd examples to cast everyone who's a recipient of state housing as being useless, and they've done that for years. You know, by deliberately underfunding maintenance on homes and blaming the people who are living them for, you know, the shoddy state of damp, crappy houses that they're having to live in.
And they're trying to purposely divide the working class too. I see it, you know, even at union conferences and stuff. A right-winger who was a member of the union, such things happen, was saying, these people are the elite renters. Right? Because those of us who are not in state housing, who are paying market rent, who are being bled dry, and there's no control over rent, you know, state housing was at least some kind of related to income. So he started saying, these people are elite renters, you know. And that kind of tactic of dividing the working class against each other and getting people angry at those who are out there.
I mean, that is a real dangerous narrative, isn't it, which is out there, which is basically saying, look, it is actually your fault if you don't have a decent job and you can't earn enough money, and it is your fault that you are poor. And that is not the case. I mean, that narrative has been told to the working class for such a long time that the working class has actually bought into it. Yeah. It's now repeating that narrative back to itself, saying, it is my fault that I am actually not getting a decent education, that I am from a poor family. So it is actually really becoming a dangerous place where the oppressed believe that it is their fault that they are oppressed.
That's all part of neoliberalism, that complete focus on the individual, that your success or failure is dependent on how hard you work. And what a fucking myth. Hard work doesn't get you anywhere, not in a society of haves and have-nots, not where equality has absolutely exploded. You can work as hard as you want, but if you don't win the genetic lottery like Max Key, for example, and you're not born into wealth and privilege, it is so much harder to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, we had some fun on Sunday. A couple in the room were along for AAAP's demo at the Croatian club in Te
Thugs and Bullies.
Thugs and Bullies, that's right, yeah.
That's a good one.
John Key and a bunch of sycophants, greasy sycophants who wanted to sidle up and shake hands with their man, you know. They didn't get to see him. He couldn't come in because we had the exit thoroughly blocked. And the cops didn't know what to do with this either. I think at the last couple of AAAP actions I've attended,
they would have known what to do with you in Ireland, mate.
We were, yeah, sure. Well, the tactic at the last couple was to try and storm our way in. This time we shut the gates, and I think they were really waiting for us to try and make a run for the for the building itself. But no, we closed that thing up, and had the pleasure of watching Maggie Barry arrive and try and climb a fence and then leave and see you, Maggie. Merry Christmas.
Have a good one.
What do these people have to celebrate? Things are in a really dire state for so many people, and they're just getting worse. These policies are absolutely ghastly. They've got nothing to celebrate.
So I thought it was good that unions have not only been supporting like the housing struggle now, but also the climate change demonstration. Said you were involved in that with the organising committee.
Yeah, it was actually there was a union mob there, which is really good. For the first time that we organised all unions in Auckland and then countrywide, obviously, to participate in these climate change marches, because we have to understand one thing, and I want to say that really loud and clear. Look, guys, there is such a thing as global warming. There is no discussions about that. So, and there are no jobs on a dead planet. So if you guys and we all want to save our jobs, hey, look, we got to look after the planet. That's number one. Everything else comes second. And that is really the big game changer, climate change. It's a big game changer. So we cannot pretend anymore that we can rape and pillage this planet as if there is, hundreds of them available to us. There is only this one planet, and we cannot cut all the forests down, and we cannot extract that last bit of oil, and we cannot mine for coal and everything and blast it through the chimneys to produce some really silly products to sell to people. That is just not going to happen any longer.
No, we really need to be forward-looking, in terms of legislation around cutting our emissions, but also, for a government that is not fond of accepting refugees. We're neighbours to all of these Pacific people who are being drowned out of their homes, who can't grow food anymore. Yeah,
Kiribati.
A number of people I know have made it to COP21 in Paris. Sina Brown-Davis, and she's linked up with a lot of Indigenous people from around the planet who are really on the front line of the negative effects of climate change.
We were hoping to have our own Gary from Unite speaking to us, but he's in, I think it's like 5 a.m. or something in Paris at the moment, and he's up for an action tomorrow, But good on Gary.
Good on Gary.
Just, going back to that we are neighbours to the Pacific, and Kiribati, which is basically pitched to sink underneath the ocean in our lifetimes, and locals darkly joke that they're the next Atlantis, and we just denied a whole entire family from Kiribati climate change refugee status, and the fact that it was massive news all over the world, but not here, says a lot about our media and the coverage.
The spin was pretty interesting too, in terms of really trying to taint that man's reputation as soon as we put him on the plane. And that's, the collapse of the Fourth Estate. We've got, people who should be out there reporting the truth. They're now, the jobs are in working spin for the national government.
Well, and I actually wrote a piece on this and the spin that they did. And really what it amounted to was institutionalized racism, because we don't care, because basically it was said that that he had sexually assaulted a woman, and national government got really upset about it. Since when does the national government care about sexual assaults against women? They don't care. They've closed down rape crisis centres. The only time they use it is when they want to pimp out feminism.
Yeah. Well, one word you've been using about the struggle, Chloe, is the intersectionality of struggles, For those of us who are socialists, we believe that all these things are related. There's a grand narrative. There's a reason why these divisions happen: destruction of the environment, exploitation of workers, oppression of Indigenous and women, gay and lesbian people. One of the slogans on these marches that we've seen time and time again is system change. System change, not climate change. Do you think there's a new space beginning to open up for a new form of politics, maybe to the left of Labour, maybe to the left of the Greens, who knows? Sid?
Actually, I funny enough that you say that, because I've been having similar thoughts recently. I think there is a vacuum, actually, in New Zealand's politics. And as recently Labour under Andrew Little has, with its cabinet reshuffle, has moved even further to the right, it has actually opened up a huge space that's begging to be filled. There is overlapping, as you call it, intersectionality. There is so much interest. I mean, on these marches, you go there is the Greens, there's the left wing of Labour still there, there is, the Socialists there is a whole bunch of people walking, side by side, alongside each other, really, really hoping for a system change, because everybody understands that how we have been doing things cannot continue any further. No. This has to stop, and this has to stop very, very soon. So we need a change, and there is potential for it. So I'm always asking, recently I've been asking people, now answer me this question: who is the Jeremy Corbyn, which is the Labour leader in the UK, who is the Jeremy Corbyn here in New Zealand, Aotearoa?
Joe Carolyn.
Well,
there you go, Joe.
Good initials there. Jesus Christ, Johnny
right.
Cash.
Yeah. Any
cricket.
Any effective change is going to have to be to the left of Labour, because they're focused on chasing the middle. And you hear their record on TPPA, on offshore drilling.
Yeah.
They'll just go with it, man. Business as usual.
That's right.
And you don't elect a government to make change. You elect one that'll make it easier. And when I say that'll make it easier for us activists, people that have a conscience and actually see that something drastically needs to change, we actually need to dismantle our current oppressive economic system. It's not working. Capitalism isn't working. You don't adapt to it. You have to absolutely sabotage it. And that sounds radical, but it's actually not. What is radical is that since National took power, I talked to Carrie Haddock from LifeWise, homelessness has exploded across the board. And one area of growth is youth homelessness, particularly Pacifica and Māori people, young people.
Yeah. I've never seen so many flash cars and people on the streets as I have in Auckland City in the last 5 years.
That's what happens when wealth gets so concentrated.
That's right.
And I just think that, talking about intersectionality, climate change is an umbrella movement. It is going to affect everyone. And if you want to talk about jobs, overwhelmingly, the people it's going to affect the most brutal and first are poor people, are Indigenous people, are people of colour, and yes, the working class, because we're poor. Because no matter how many hours we work, we never have enough to buy food and pay rent at the same time. So it's a powerful movement.
As these crises get harder and harder, climate change, refugees, 0 hours, homelessness, insecurity, poverty, it's not automatic that people are going to move to the left. It's not automatic that people are going to draw the conclusions that we need a positive system change. I've been talking to Gary in Paris about, are the protests going to happen? Because the government there has outlawed everything to do with the climate protests. Yet they're still allowing U2 gigs to go through,
No Bono.
Ban Bono. But, the state of emergency that they're under over there also is coupled with the rise of the National Front getting 30% of the vote.
And a bunch of arms dealers rubbing their hands in glee.
Well,
the chaos
as we start bombing Syria and stuff.
Racist ideologies.
So, I mean, the one thing I remember from history was that Hitler came to power through a democratic vote, and the Nazis achieved 33% of the vote.
And Hitler came to power because the left wasn't united in Germany. If the left actually, total vote on the left in Germany was a majority, yet they were not united, so we got Hitler.
In terms of increased arms spending, New Zealand's intends to spend like $15 billion over the next 5 years. I had occasion to visit Wellington for the Blockade of the Arms conference like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it was great to link up with committed activists from down there. This thing's been going on every year, and it was new knowledge to me, that it was a thing. But they'd successfully shut it down in 2006 and moved it from Te Papa, where it had been. I think they got a bit of a hard time this year, and they're moving it to Auckland next year. So,
bring it on.
We'll have to give them a very, very warm Auckland welcome. So we watched people getting taken away by the law all day. It was a quite a long afternoon, but there was a lot of humour there as well. There was some dancing, and there was music, and there was a food station, which is good to see. When you're on the blockade, you kind of need to refuel. During while the police were hauling people off in the paddy wagons, there was one guy with a trombone playing the Imperial Death March.
Well, it's a good thing that you've just mentioned that, because I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I'm looking forward to seeing the film with my son and completing the circle of life. As an Irish Republican growing up in the 70s, it was great to see an evil empire being challenged by a rebel alliance. Chloe, do we need a rebel alliance of the left in Aotearoa?
Yes, we do. And I think one way that we can start to do that is to make sure that the next generation don't feel so disenfranchised. Very quickly, the generation coming up after mine, I'm millennial, are actually being called Generation K by an economist, which is after Katniss from the Hunger Games, because that is exactly the world they've been born into. And we are being pitted against each other, and you have more chance of winning the Hunger Games than securing well-paid, secure work in this flooded job market.
Well, I'd like to thank Sid, I'd like to thank Stephen, I'd like to thank Chloe, I'd like to thank our bodyguard Finn here in the corner as well. We are the Rebel Alliance, and this is Star Wars: The Imperial March.
Thanks for listening to Workers' Voice. This show was produced by Unite Union. Listen to us every Saturday, 10:45 a.m. or anytime online at planetaudio.org.nz/Workers' Voice.